So for you guys, what type of campaigns are you guys focusing on to make sure that those customers looking for your own brand, how are you making sure that it's getting in front of those customers?
Because it is that high intent time period, it really is the more bottom of funnel where sponsored products is the most effective because someone knows they want a metabolic health product. They kind of know what they're looking for and you want to show up there.
All right, guys, we're here in the Amazon Ads Content Studio. I'm with Ali Egan. Ali, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Ali from Veracity Health. I was doing some research looking into your brand and your products, and first, I'm really impressed with what you've built as a business owner. But I think more importantly, I'm impressed with what you're doing just for health in general,
Yeah.
focusing on metabolic health. So as a business owner, though, selling products, Amazon is actually one of the best marketplaces that I've found and from other brand owners that I've talked to. And so I want to focus a little bit in our conversation today about not only just selling your products on Amazon and using Amazon's, platform, their marketplace, Amazon advertising, but I kind of want to focus a little bit on Prime Day.
Okay.
For Prime Day for your brand, do you think about it more as kind of just a short-term sales spike, or are you using Prime Day more for long-term brand growth?
Of course, we want the short-term spike, but I think it's really centered around how do we turn that into momentum? Because what I've found with Amazon is that it's, really a rolling stone that gathers moss. And once you start getting it going, then it gives you back more if you sort of invest in it in the right points in time. And so for when we think about Prime Day, like what does it mean? It's kind of like there's millions and millions and millions of very high intent shoppers. And so when we think about that, it's like, how do you create high intent? Well, you have to create some awareness beforehand. So we're starting to think about, our Amazon strategy for a month or two leading in, and then our off Amazon strategy. How are we creating that like high level messaging and then really like sealing the deal when it comes Prime Day? The other thing that we've seen be, Prime Day just be so impactful with is increasing our category ranking, which is something that lives with the brand for, weeks and months to come afterwards. So if we're able to really execute with excellence in that time period, then we see our rank improve, 2 spots, 3 spots, 10 spots. And that helps us continuously come up higher in organic rankings going forward.
And I think, like you said, you see that nice little spike over the course of 2 or 4 days now for those Prime events. So you kind of get like those 2 months of like seeing that nice little spike and then the tail end, like you said, like you keep that ranking, you're getting that nice boost in ranking post Prime Day event.
Right.
And you can kind of ride that, that long tail, and then you get another spike and ride that long tail.
Yeah. And like there are going to be people who were high intent for something else, but maybe run across your brand during that time period. So I think there's a lot of things that you can't perfectly measure all the time, but are also very impactful.
That's a great insight as well. For you guys, when it comes to sales events on Amazon throughout the course of a year, how soon are you starting to prepare for that? From a marketing perspective, but also just from like an inventory perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say inventory is the most
Yeah.
important because that takes, the most time of obviously making sure we create the product, are able to ship it to Amazon fulfillment centers and have them process it. Because if you don't have inventory, then like you can have the best marketing in the world, but you have nothing to sell. So that is first and foremost. The other thing we're trying to do is learn more from past Prime Day events and also think about it not just from our brand's perspective, but really the consumer perspective. Like, what are the messages like they're being bombarded with? What are the offers they're seeing, etc.? Because, Amazon prides itself on obviously being customer centric. And so we want to also make sure we're thinking about it from like, what is the customer seeing? How are they shopping during this period?
And I think that's something for brands to consider when you're selling on Amazon is there are competitors, right? There's
Right.
competitors right there next to you, which is a lot different from selling on your own website.
Yeah.
So you have to be kind of conscious about that. That's insightful of really getting into the mind of the
Pretty much
customer.
everyone who's searching for your specific like veracity, metabolism, ignite is also seeing competitors,
Yeah.
right? But I think that can also be an advantage. One, when people are searching other competitors, we can have the
Yeah.
opportunity to show up. And then the other thing we think a lot about is our brand is very different because we are rooted in real science and, physician backing. We have to explain why our product is higher priced and better, but it actually is really nice to be able to have that comparison and almost make it like crystal clear why we are different.
Okay, so I want to talk about that a little bit more because on Amazon, there's a lot of different advertising placements and
Hmm.
formats, right? For you, you mentioned, right? If someone is searching your brand name on Amazon, they may see competitors, but vice versa. If someone searches a competitor or even just like a generic keyword, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be a
Yep.
brand name.
Yep.
Your products might show up, a competitor's products might show up. So for you guys and your advertising strategy on Amazon, what type of campaigns are you guys focusing on to make sure that, those customers coming, especially looking for maybe your own brand
Yeah.
or your product specifically that like, hey, we have the product.
Yes.
How are you making sure that it's getting in front of those customers?
Because it is that high intent time period, it really is the more bottom of funnel where sponsored products is the best,
Mm.
the most effective because someone knows they want a GLP-1 alternative or a metabolic health product. They kind of know what they're looking for and you want to show up there. I think, given our category in the supplement health and wellness space, the broad video can really create like some of the education that
Mhm.
even sparks the like, oh, this is what I'm looking for, right? And then, sponsored brands can tell that brand story, the trust, and then obviously sponsored products is that lowest funnel conversion. So ideally these all work in unison and, we just find the right way of making it work in our category.
With those sponsored product campaigns, I'm curious, are you kind of changing maybe your expectations for metrics? I know that we've got like the advertising cost of sales, total advertising cost of sale, or even just bids, spend.
Yeah.
How are you maybe making changes to your targets there during these events?
I mean, we definitely increase our tacos tolerance at that time,
Okay.
meaning that we spend a higher amount of our revenue on advertising,
Mm-hmm.
but we see that translate to really high ROAS and just such a big dollar opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, discounting strategy, across a Walmart or a Target or whatever. You're willing to take down a few points in margin if you just get so much more volume. And I think the same thing
Mm-hmm.
applies, even though you're not like, a discounter on Amazon, that you make up for it in the dollar volume that you get through. And the other thing we are trying to, do and educate on as a brand is that, our product is, can help you meet short-term goals, whether it be energy, body composition, weight management, etc. But it really is a long-term way to naturally support your metabolic health and to not go into decline that we so see through just normal aging. And so we use it as an opportunity to say, we got to acquire that customer first to build LTV. And we're seeing that come through. And, we have quite a bit of, subscribe and save customers, or even if people aren't subscribing and saving, we're pretty sure that they're coming back to purchase on Amazon again.
And I think it's important to mention too, like with a consumable product, right? Like that lifetime value, like you mentioned, is honestly like it's so important.
It's so
It's
important.
so important. So you can maybe afford, maybe focus a little bit more, like we were saying, in these big peak events where there's really high demand on capturing customers.
Yes.
Because again, on the long term side of
And of course,
things.
it depends on your category. If you have a one-time use product, you can't think about it in the same way.
Right.
But if you're producing a quality product that if someone likes, they will come back to, it is a key opportunity to get that relationship started.
I'm curious to get your opinion on this too. For someone who maybe does have like a full suite of Amazon ads, placements and formats to use, sponsor brand, collection, video campaigns and things like that. You did mention and in our previous conversations too, how you're using certain types of videos to really build that trust factor.
Hmm.
How do you think other brands, other sellers can use video whether it be videos on their product listings, sponsor brand videos, to try to build trust with potential customers?
Yeah, to build trust with potential customers, I think it always comes down to really understanding like what is the customer education level and what are the key buyer decision questions that you need to, certifiably answer to gain that trust. And, for something like a toy or something, you might be of like, how does this game or toy work? And a more demo type product. For us, where it's a consumable that people know that they need to, take over time, it's really using video with our physicians, and we have a whole community of health coaches and fitness practitioners and people who are really experts in the space talking about the products and the product benefits to explain it in a very simple way, but also to recertify that trust. And for us, it's really how do you, again, it's you have to consider what your competitors are doing and not necessarily like copy them, but say, how can I stand out in the minds of my consumer? And I think in our space, there's a lot of use of what I like to call the wellness girly. And, they're great, normal people who are into wellness, which is great, but they don't necessarily have a lot of authority or trust. And we do use them, but we use that more for just like almost more of a video review versus like building that credibility. And that's where we want to build credibility and trust is really through our physicians and expert partnerships.
To kind of wrap things up, again, we were talking about Prime Day, talking a lot about sponsored product, talking a lot about customer acquisition, leading that into lifetime value, video, building trust, things like that. How do you see the future of Amazon ads playing out for your brand? Where do you think the future opportunity lies for your brand, maybe specifically? And it could be something that maybe is a little untapped.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is untapped, and I'm excited because I think that Amazon has been investing more into how do they build trust with their consumers in the category, because there have been a lot of, bad players and people, we even have sometimes third parties will list our product and they aren't verified sellers, but now Amazon has a transparency program, and we have sent our product for third party testing that we already had, by the way, and had the certification to send to Amazon, but we had it done vis-a-vis Amazon so they can specifically verify, because you can always, change a PDF or something. And so anyway, I say all that to say that as Amazon thinks about what do they need to feel comfortable having the category expand from a marketing perspective, it only benefits them to open that up. And I believe that they're putting those guardrails in place. And so brands like ours that actually have the supply chain transparency, the third party testing, the clinical validation that we can, not just say, but really, support, hopefully we will be able to benefit from that whole suite of things as they, get buttoned up on that.
Allie, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.